This week's Staffing Monthly 5 to 7 is proudly brought to you by TempWorks Software, delivering innovative and cutting-edge staffing software solutions to hundreds of temporary staffing agencies of all sizes across the nation. Welcome to the first edition of Staffing Monthly 5 to 7 web series, where we will talk to leaders inside the industry and out about topics that can improve the industry and individual companies. We're super excited to have Greg Muccio, the head of talent acquisition for Southwest Airlines, as our first guest. Greg, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Andrew, thanks so much. I love being first. So yeah, hopefully there will be a second. Hopefully I won't tank this so bad that there's not another one, but we'll see. So yeah, I'm excited. I appreciate you asking me to be here. So.
Absolutely. No, you'll set the bar very high and you're going to put the pressure on the rest of the folks. It'll be great. It's going to be wonderful.
Let's go with that. So. Let's go with that one. That sounds like the way to go. So yeah.
Perfect. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on was to kind of piggyback off of our March edition of Staffing Monthly, which talks about vendor management systems. In speaking with Greg, Southwest has implemented what I feel to be the best VMS program as it pertains to the design of the program and fairness to agencies. It is outstanding. Let's just start off. Greg, how long have you had a VMS in place?
So we've had a VMS, so the actual tool itself, since about 2008. At that particular point in time, we had a tool, and then it was being just for one department only, our technology department, and then they also had an MSP in place. About 2010, I affectionately drew the short straw at that point in time to actually consolidate all of this effort under HR, and so that's when my direct involvement came into place.
Very good. Okay, you got a 3-hour project to get all of this together, right? And be done with it by the next day, right? That's perfect.
Yeah, I always joke that it was one of those ones. There was my leader boss was, there was a few of us standing there together, and was just like they asked, like, "Hey, whoever wants to lead us, take a step forward." And I wasn't paying attention, and everyone else just took a step back. And so yeah, so that's how I got it. So.
Congratulations. That's right. You won.
Yeah.
When you first set out to implement this program and especially the consolidation program, what was the overriding goal for Southwest?
Yeah, I think there was a couple at that time, right? We were the wild west, for it. I mean, it was completely decentralized, and you could not say who was in the building, who are they from, what were you just all those horror stories that you were there. And so that's what the first thing that I think the VMS tool, especially back in that day, I think the ultimate thing that it provided for folks was visibility. And then that visibility allowed you to then make better informed decisions based on whatever was important to you, right? So that could be, security, it could be quality, it could be pricing, all of the above, right? So those were, that was what was really driving us, was just, just the brutal honesty of like, no one could answer that question, right? Of like, how many people do we have working for Southwest right now that aren't full-time employees? What are they doing? Who are they doing it for? How much are we paying for what they're doing, right? And so, so that was really, one of the very first things that kind of came back was like, I was like, hey, this is not something you can do in a Excel spreadsheet or Access database or something like that. You need something a lot more sophisticated than that. So that's what really drove the first piece of it. So.
Certainly. Now, what did you have some overriding goals for your existing agency partners that you used or that you wanted to onboard in this system? Was there anything that you thought of that, hey, we want to look out for this with our existing agency partners?
Sure. And so, when we launched it, we made the decision that we wanted to run our own program internally, right? So we wanted
Yeah.
that. And so, what was really interesting is for about an 18-month period, we sort of had two programs. So you had the MSP running the program in technology, and then my team, we affectionately call ourselves SWA staffers, so it felt like a staffing name or whatever, but SWA, SWA, right, with Southwest
Yeah.
Airlines. And then we ran it really for the rest of the organization. And because of my background from being in the staffing industry before I had ever come to Southwest, one of the goals that we set down as a team was I wanted us to be very vendor or supplier friendly.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is, and that's different. Like, that's not like, hey, come in and, do whatever you want and charge us as much as you want, but more really on the business end of it. And for me, because I did spend a lot of time as a recruiter on the staffing side, that's who I really wanted to appeal to. I was like, I want to make the relationship so good for them and so different and unique that on a day-to-day basis that recruiter is like, whether they say it or not, they're just like, Southwest recs are my number one priority, and I'm going to send my best every time. I'm sending my best candidate there. And I really we sort of built it backwards from that. Like, what is that? In order to do that, what are some of the mechanics that need to happen to make that part happen?
That's great. That is a big deal. And I know that's one of the complaints in the industry from other VMS programs where, they feel like they're the recruiters or the agencies are looked at, like a number or a commodity. And I think
Right.
that's one of the items that I saw when we spoke earlier about your VMS system that I thought was outstanding, because you really did look out for the recruiter and the agency to make sure that, because if you treat them well, they're going to treat you well, right? That's the way that it's going to work. And you won't get that second or third tier candidate. You're going to, like you said, Southwest is my number one priority. I get recs from them and I want to get them the best player that I can possibly get them, and get another one and then get another one. And that's kind of the way it works. And I think it kind of fulfills itself. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Now, one of the other, there's a couple of other items that I saw or I heard from you regarding your VMS program that really set it apart, that I thought was outstanding. You seem to throw some of the traditional VMS rules out the window when it comes to these programs, which is outstanding, such as the amount of time that you allot for them to submit a candidate, communication between Southwest and agencies. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And this is something, and keep in mind, this will be viewed by staffing industry professionals that can then take this to their customers and say, hey, this is really the way that it ought to run. Can you elaborate on kind of how you threw those rules, traditional rules, out the window?
Yeah, and I think part of me was really like, hey, because as I go to conferences, right, and you listen to the agency and they're complaining about their customer, and you talk to my peers and they're complaining about the agencies, and you're just kind of like, are you hearing what you're saying? Like, you've done these things or whatever. And so luckily, I think just, with our holistic approach, as well as, as we've talked before too, the employment brand, overall brand, and culture at Southwest is huge, right? And so, that was certainly a mindset and a lens that we were doing all these things for, and being able. And so, what I wanted to do was what I just saw interesting, right, was just how a lot of organizations just made it really hard on their suppliers, and I'm just like, I don't like. It's not a game show. Like, the faster and better candidates they send, like, that's better for us as an organization. Why would I put anything in place that without really good thought behind it that would make that harder for them to execute against that, right? And so a few of the things right out of the gate that we did. So when I built a team specifically for it, and actually we had some folks that did helped run the actual tool stuff, but I actually had 4 recruiters that they were really the liaisons with the staffing industry. One of the things that I didn't give and actually pulled back was no, like they're not allowed to have contact with hiring leaders. And part of where I saw that from is we need to be selecting based on the best candidates that are being provided, not because somebody's doing, spends more money on them or whatever, right? And that's where we actually were able to prove out that there were selections that were being exclusive to some of those organizations that were C players, right? But it was just like, hey, and that kind of thing. But so that was one of them. But I said, but my team, you can talk to all the time, and they are your liaison, they are your advocate, and what I visually is like, I created things that said, think of it like a three-legged race. My team and your teams, their legs are tied together, and one will not be successful at the other because my recruiter, that's what they're being focused on. And if the recs that they are supporting within take forever, we aren't finding good people, there's turnover in them, like that's who's going to get held accountable because they're where that piece is. And so a couple of things. When you submit a candidate, it was an absolute requirement that my team, that you heard back from us within 48 hours. That was the longest period of time that could be. And it was non-negotiable. And frankly, whenever I would communicate those things, I would communicate that to both the suppliers and my team at the same time. So there was no confusion as to what the expectations were. Sure. And I just simply said, if you're not hearing from them, then, I had a leader in place was like, you can go to Karen first. And then if Karen doesn't respond to you, you can come to me. But part of that was just like, no, we're not sending people into black holes. That's a horrible candidate experience. It's horrible for the vendor. And so I said, you don't have to, respond, but I said, they need at least an acknowledgement. I got it. And here's what I'm doing next with it. You don't have to sit there and fully out. And then building upon that, every step of the process, I had expectations, same kind of thing. What I would tell my recruiters is like, hey, they're going to do it anyway, but like, wouldn't it be cool if we could set up a cadence that the recruiter's not calling you like 3 minutes after the interview ended and the person's out in the car trying to get feedback, like or whatever. And I go, wouldn't it be cool, like if we built up a reliability that they know that you're going to call them within a certain period of time to do that. And so making sure that you were always aware, and where that benefited Southwest was then the agency's able to keep the candidate warm, right? Like the worst thing in the world would be, oh man, we really want to take Andrew, but because we've ghosted you for a week, he's now been moved on, or whatever, right? Like how does that help Southwest, right? The other piece that I said is when we're not moving forward with their candidate, what is not an acceptable reason is there was a better candidate, right? That doesn't help anybody. I said it doesn't help that vendor get better, and it doesn't actually help maybe the candidate get better at interviewing. So I said we need to give them very, very specifics. Now, every once in a while, you would have one that it's like, dude, they're 1B, okay? And what we would do, one of the things that we would do, once again, as a vendor friendly, is like, we're going to see if we can't find a spot for that person. And so, and at that point in time would be like, hey, we've already done this. And so we may give you, total exclusivity to a rec, meaning like, we're not even going to put it out. We're just going to, because you did such a great job. And what I would challenge the vendors on is like, I care less about how many placements you make. What I care is how many candidates you get on the medal stand, because that means if they're getting into the final interview and being considered, it means you are paying attention to our requirements. You're absolutely paying attention to the culture piece of what we want in the candidates. And I'm like, And so they didn't get it. But I said, if you're doing that, first of all, over time, you're going to get your fair share of placements. But if you're doing that, then what you've done is made me and my team look good. And what ends up happening is then my team starts advocating for you and for your candidates, right? Because they're just like, well, hey, I've got this great candidate. They're awesome. What else do we have coming down that I could maybe just say, hey, I want hiring leader to come meet with this person. So that's one. Two of the others that I always thought were really strange to me that just didn't fit, especially from how you recruit and staff, was the 72-hour or 48-hour window to get to submit candidates. I'm just like, okay, so but yet the same companies, my peer groups that would complain about that also would complain about the crappy resumes and candidates and I'm just like, well, they're held accountable. They're held accountable by doing that, and so they're going to get dinged if they don't submit, so many in time. But yet you're there, and I said, no. Like, I want your best person, not the first one that pops up on your radar. So now, does speed play into it? I said, here's what I'm not doing. I'm not holding up the process for you. So in other words, if I've got a competitor that's better at pipelining or whatever it is, we're going to move through the process. But there's nothing in our scoring mechanism that says, hey, you're going to get dinged. And then I always was puzzled at like the resume limitations. And so, I noticed it's like, hey, the vendor, you can only submit 2. And I'm like, so once again, not, Andrew, I think we talked kind of a B+ student, borderline, whatever, no genius by any means. But I'm like, so let me make this sure. You've got an agency or vendor or a couple of them that are crushing it, like for a specific thing. And what you're going to do is you're going to tell them, yeah, I'm only going to let you submit 2 so that I can allow the other ones that are doing horrible to get 2 in as well. Like, I don't know. So we sort of got rid of that. And then we actually built something in that just said too, hey, as a provider, like if this is not your wheelhouse, you can actually opt out of the rec because that helps us. First of all, I don't want you. Too many agencies, right, try to say, hey, we can do all these things, and none of them can do that. So what I want is like, hey, these are the ones that you're good at. Focus on that and get us the best. I don't want to distract you from what you're good at by trying to fill something over here. That's on me as the owner of the program to make sure that I find suppliers that can do that, not trying to ask somebody to do something that they're not. And so we then actually built in that you could opt out of it so that you didn't get dinged because, hey, I didn't, my, QBR or my monthly scorecard, I haven't submitted for 50% of the ones. Well, okay, that's fine. As long as I'd rather you tell me that you're not than submit bad candidates that waste my team time. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's huge. And that is a big worry from an agency side, which is they feel like they have to be a part of, we've got to be in the game. We've got to submit somebody. Otherwise, we're not going to get any more directs or, whatever it is. But being able to opt out and say, this isn't in our wheelhouse. You're right. A lot of agencies like to say that they specialize in everything. And that's wonderful to hear, but it's not accurate. So if they can get within their true wheelhouse, then that's very helpful. And obviously the other items you mentioned as well, the turnaround time and the number, that always puzzled me as well on the resume submittal cap. I never understood that, and you hit it spot on. I mean, you've got a great vendor here, and hey, great, turn it on, give me 2 resumes, and I'll turn it off. That's it. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all.
That was a real struggle for me. That one was hard. I was just like, man, someone's got to explain this to me, right? So.
Yeah. Where's the logic in this? So, absolutely. Now, overall, looking at this from a big picture standpoint, have you seen the desired success that you were looking for, that you sought out for within the implementation of in the consolidation of your VMS program?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, we were able, conclusion. So we were able to see improvement in quality, significant improvement in quality of placement, significant improvement in speed. Certainly some balance with pricing, right? And like I said, for me, that was never my play with it. Like it's because I had no desire to squeeze our vendors, and that's where I think, unfortunately, a lot of organizations utilize a VMS, potentially to do that. And that wasn't, but it did give visibility because there does become well, why am I paying this much more for that? And I'm not getting the value for that. So to me, it just allowed us to have a better value piece for it. What's interesting is, as I mentioned at the beginning, we actually then ended up winning the business from our technology department. Like they came and it started that some of their hiring leaders were like, well, we're getting like 50 resumes in our inbox in 48 hours and we can't cycle through blah, blah, blah. Greg, the customers that Greg's supporting, they're treating them like it's a full-time position, right? Where, they just show up to the interview and they get to look at a reduced list of candidates that have been heavily screened or whatever and moving through quickly, as well as just some of the knowledge. And then what it does too, what I think our program and internally has done as well is we've had the opportunity to advocate, whether it's for a vendor, whether it's for a supplier, for a candidate, whatever it may be, as well as we've had multiple situations where we've been able to actually go in and have rates increased, if you will, because we get paid on the 5th and the 20th of every month. And so as an internal program, as we're running it, it's like, if I got 5 people in the program or 5,000 people in the program, my pay doesn't change. And so if I'm advising you something that might seem counterintuitive, like, hey, we need to pay more or we need to do this or whatever it is, meaning Southwest knows, okay, well, Greg's intention, his team's intention is obviously for our best interest because it makes no difference, to them. So I think that's been great. And then I think too, when we initially took over, we probably were easily in the 70-ish vendor range, and we're down to below. I think we have maybe 12 now with another 3 or 4 that are niche. And so now, once again, the best of the best, they're getting better volume, more exclusivity, those sorts of things as well. And so I feel like that's, I think that's great. I think we become a trusted source internally for folks. And then I feel like the vendors that are in our program appreciate, kind of what we do and what we get. And we're open. I mean, I've told them, it's like, dude, you can give me, like, if something's not working, I will be open and listen to it. And I'll be honest, over the course of, those 10 plus years, I've removed people from my team because they weren't being the good partners that I expected them to be. Cause I'm like, hey, this is our brand to that supplier community as well. Right. And I do want the long list of suppliers saying, I want to get into that program. Don't call me because I'm not letting anybody but yeah, I certainly want to be able to know that we have a great reputation as a place for folks to do contracting business with. That's ultimately like, hey, at the end of the day, I want people to say that about us, whether they're the candidate or a supplier. And so what all do we have to do to make sure that that's our reputation? So.
Yeah, absolutely. That way everybody wins. And that's extremely important.
Yep.
And don't worry, we won't flash your email address or your phone number up here to get bombarded with 8 million phone calls and emails. I'm sure you already get them anyway. So we'll avoid that. We'll keep that graphic off of there. So
yeah, appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. All right, and finally, with this series, we're gonna finish with some fun ones, just to get to know Greg a little bit. And so the first, I've got 3 quick questions on here. Actually, the first one's kind of a compound question, but that's okay. First question is favorite sport, favorite team, and when will they win it all again? Or if they haven't, when will they win it all?
Wow. Okay. So my true favorite sport is baseball, but my favorite team will be is Notre Dame. I live and die by them, and they will win again the year after Nick Saban retires. So that's sort of
perfect.
I'm a realist at heart. So huge fan, but yeah.
That's probably every other college team as well. As soon as
I don't think we're alone in that.
Happening.
Like, I really, I'm like, hey, if they make the playoff, like making the playoffs and getting beat by Alabama is like what we can hope for right now. I'm sorry, and yes, I think that's everybody in college football, in my opinion. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, just to give you a little jab on Notre Dame too, though, every year they will be in the top 4 no matter what. Now they may be, they may start the season out 0-4, but they'll probably find their way in the top 4, just like Oklahoma, I think. So that's the way it works.
Hey, it's all about ratings, Andrew. So I mean, I can't. I'm sorry, right? I'm just, give me some other schools that have had 2 or 3 movies made about. I mean, but whatever. Yeah. So.
Well, my Razorbacks cannot compete with anything that is out there. I promise you. So I understand and I envy you. So second question: favorite vacation spot? Obviously, you're in the travel industry. You get to go. You're in the customer service industry. You just happen to have an airline. You just happen to fly people.
That's right.
Fly planes. That's right. What's your favorite spot?
Wow. So with my favorite place that I've ever been is Keneal Bay on St. John. It's amazing. It is. I'm a big Caribbean guy, and so I really love the fact that we fly to a lot of places there now. But yeah, those are some of the if I had to sign a deal that says that's the only place you can ever go, but you get to go every year. For example, there's a really good chance that I would just ink that deal and just say, yeah, there could be something better, but I'm going to take this and run. So
I am right there with you. That's heaven on earth, I believe. So yes, I'm right there with you. Now you can't. Okay, final question, and you can't say Rudy, but what is your favorite movie of all time?
Hold on. I love movies too. I think one of the ones that, Shawshank Redemption, I think is just one of the absolute best movies of all time from every aspect of it, and the story and the acting or whatever. So that's one of the ones like that, like if you're, channel surfing, someday or whatever, and you land on it, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm in, right? And
stuck,
all the way to the end, even though you've seen that ending 100 times, it's like, no, because it could change. What if he doesn't get out? Just all those kind of things, right? So
sure, yeah. You may have seen this. May be the alternate ending. You never know. So yeah, you're not punching out on that one. You're there.
Who knows if a director's cut is out there and I'm just not aware of it.
That's right. You haven't seen it. It just now surfaced. Oh, that's great. Well, Greg, this has been a lot of fun. I can't thank you enough. This is awesome. This is our first 5 to 7, and I can't think of a better way to start it. And I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time and your insights as well. This is something that folks in the staffing industry need to take this and run with it. I truly believe that. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Andrew, this is cool. Appreciate it. And, hopefully maybe you'll even have me back on another time.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Absolutely. That sounds great. All right. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.